forces, our businesses, and our experts. So long may this continue, and we hope that we can expand and make it even better as we go through. Now, without too much ado, I will come to now to Dr. Gaim, or rather, Associate Professor Gaim. He has just accepted his post at the University Malaysia Sabah for a short time. It is great that you are going back there. Dr. Gaim is an old friend of mine. We've known each other for a very long time already because we've worked a lot on projects in Sabah. Anything from the Danida-sponsored local economic development project, as well as local town planning projects. In the past, they were very, very good projects, which kind of started the ball rolling on what we can do more in terms of Sabah itself. But of course, Gaim has moved on even further, and I've moved on to Peninsula, if you like, and to GCOM. But for Gaim, to university, he also went on to Nokoali and in Australia, came back with even better prospects, and now that's it. He's founded a new setup called RICE, and for that, it is an important piece of work relating to communities. I won't go too much into that because he will cover that in a bigger scale later on. But what I want to emphasize here is that we have now looked at, through Prof. Ho's presentation, from an overall strategy. Now we home in on a particular area that we want to focus on, i.e. smart cities as well as investments, which is a great topic. Now we move on to communities. How do we get communities involved in the development of climate actions? And more importantly, how do we bring them out? Because it's usually in the work that we've done in the past, communities are happy or can be as happy as they can be in their local situations, whether it's in the we want them to do more than that, because for Gaim to share some of the work that he's been doing with the communities. So Gaim, if you are ready, I'll hand it over to you, and can possibly get have the slides ready for this one. Again, Gaim, you've got 15 minutes for this one.
Yeah, thank you, Boyd. Hello, everyone. Hello, our CEO, Ken. Can you all hear me?
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear, thank you. All right, so Ken, if you will kindly share my slide, please. So I'm actually coming to you all the way from the rural, almost in the middle of Borneo. And then our place was just connected with internet end of last year. So I'm trying this out from somewhere in the middle of Sabah. Ken, can you share the slide, please?
Okay, we are sharing.
Hello. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Okay, so within the context of climate crisis, I will be talking about adaptive strategy of communities, especially among the indigenous communities to climate change, with example from rural Borneo. And as you can see on my cover slide, this is somewhere in the middle of Sabah, but don't be deceived by the look of it, because we are connected through gravel road. So even though we are connected to gravel road, and as you can see, the tower there was just erected about 6 months ago. So we are in the rural setting, but yes, we are connected to the rest of the world. Next slide, please. I will go to the content of the presentation. So again, this is my brief format. I will not be talking much on technical issues here, but I will touch on resilience and adaptive strategy of the indigenous communities in face of the climate crisis, and with examples from rural Sabah, Borneo. So with the first slide, please. Yes. Okay, so as a form of introduction, we all know that Borneo is a tropical climate, as a third largest island in the world, but is often subject to severe weather patterns and then changing weather conditions. So therefore, livelihood is tough, but local communities learn to harmonize and to adapt with the harsh environment. And of course, this has prompted local communities, especially the indigenous communities in the rural areas, to adapt to the changing climate patterns. Now, understanding this adaptive strategy by local communities and rural communities will be very important as a departing point, especially on development planning for communities, especially those that living in the vulnerable area. Next slide, please. Now, you might be wondering if Borneo or tropical countries has a season. And true enough, the photo, there are 4 photos here, and it represents the cycle of activities among the rural areas in a year. So on the picture number A here, this is a hill paddy, if you will, planted in a steep hills. But as you can see, it is intercrop with other edible crops such as tapioca and others. And they are very healthy. So although they are rain dependent, but indigenous and local communities know when the rainy season is. So they know when to plant and then move on from there. So if you look at B, immediately after this or during the paddy season, they plant few other crops, including banana. And then after the harvesting is over, and then other crops will grow. And this is short-term crops such as the banana shown in the B photo. But of course, for the rural communities to have an income, cash income, they do rubber tapping. And they do this after they done the paddy and as well as the other activities. But within that, you also have a fruit season, normally around September, October, November in a year. So as you can see, rural community are well adapted to activities that will feed themselves throughout the year. And this is almost a cycle, a normal cycle in many parts of Borneo, and especially Sabah. We go to the next slide. The next slide will show an example of how rural communities protect their source of water. This is from Rungus Hanhaba. This is where I am now. I've just completed a community project on clean water supply for rural communities. In my particular district, there are 131 villages, and only 30 of them are covered or supplied with clean water from the government. So the other 100 villages left on their own to manage their water supply. So we managed to secure small funding for them to provide not only water but clean water for the communities. And this is part of a research project. So from the research, we found out that this particular community knows the value of water, so therefore they protected the watershed, and local wisdom informed them that pristine waters actually come from the pristine environment, jungle, for example. And this is pretty much living in harmony with nature. Now, on the next slide, it's hard to imagine if you have this situation in Borneo in the modern era, but it does exist. No electricity, no highways, no problem. Because local communities learn to adapt with the environment. You have electricity supply. By the way, the electricity supply was through solar system. This was provided by an NGO. And by the way, this is already about 12 years old solar system. It's about time to replace them and give them a new life. So NGO, if you are listening, this is a great opportunity, and you can contact us through our CEO, Dr. Ken, Tuan Ken. Also, I will leave my email at the end. So you can contact us if you can to refurbish, especially the solar system. But you can see, normally you have a truck, a vehicle parked in front of your front yard. But this family has a buffalo, and this is buffalo. This buffalo is very dear to them because it will help to carry goods through and from the market. So this is another symbol of resilience and adaptive strategy among the indigenous communities. Now, let's move on to the next slide, which is, yes, this is another example of resilience. I will talk about the wakit, or the cylindrical bamboo backpack. And this is quite common form of transporting goods in the rural areas. This particular photo, especially the man is carrying a rubber sheet, and this rubber sheet is about to be sold to the rubber agents for cash income. If you look at the photo at the back here, this is a freestanding solar panel. But if you look at the house structures, this is actually pretty much in relation to low carbon house, bamboo walls, stilted to allow for good ventilation, for example. So as we can see, rural communities have adapted the climate change adaptive strategies in their daily lives. In the next slide.
So we are going.
Yeah, you what? In the next slide, please.
Alan, please help me to mute them.
In the next slide, please. So, as we can see, this adaptive strategy among the local communities unlimited. This is very famous in the rural area. So if you go to the rural area and look for their shoes, you will find this Adidas Kampung. And Adidas Kampung is a rubber made shoes and resembles to the kind of shoes that normally worn by soccer players. But in the rural areas, this actually symbolizes the resilience and adaptive strategy of rural communities. These shoes actually waterproof, can be wiped dry, and has a better traction, especially during the rainy season. So, in short, you can find almost everything in the daily or livelihood is actually adapting to the local environment and signifying their resilience in adaptive strategy to local communities. So with that 5 example and case studies, let me conclude my slides with a few points which quite pertinent to the discussion on climate crisis in Borneo. So rural communities are particularly vulnerable to climate change due to the harsh environment and rugged environment they live in. To improve adaptive planning, there are need to look at several aspects, especially on the planning side. Number 1, to better understand the climate vulnerability through appropriate assessment methodology. So, livelihood in the rural communities not much or not really understood, especially from the perspective of policymaker. We know this from experiences. By the way, my background is town planning. I'm a town planner, and me, Boyd, and several others, we have trekked to rural areas to find out how we can better plan rural areas, be it as a land use or economic planning for rural communities. So a better methodology to suit that or to find better alternatives for rural planning is necessary. Secondly, to maintain climate change adaptation initiative in community development planning and in land use development so that it can increase community resilience. And thirdly, to consider broader economic context in the assessment of rural vulnerability. I have given example of the water supply, and this is pretty much related to health of rural communities. Healthy rural communities mean healthy communities and adapting to climate change. Therefore, in order. The fourth one is to consider a more practical assessment when doing community development planning, especially in the rural areas and among indigenous communities. And finally, to consider asset-based community development approach. I have done several works on asset-based community development approach, and this actually worked pretty well, especially when implementing a project in the rural area. So therefore, I would conclude that adaptation strategy should be mainstream into local development planning, especially in the rural areas. So I'll come to the final slide. Then you can find my emails if you need further questions or further communication with me. So with that, I give back to Boyd and Ken.
All right. Thank you, Gaim. Very enlightening as always. And of course, looking at the slides, it shows you what can be done even in rural areas. One, as you can see there, the building is very much from local materials, which means they are low carbon. They can be found nearby. As when I was growing up, my house was the same. But the difference is, and there is low carbon. And the difference is here is you have electricity by using solar. Wow, that's pretty good. I think later on we have a topic from Bunny on energy, which we'll cover. But before we go on for that, the next speaker, before I ask Audrey to come in present, can I ask Ken? We can do a group photo, please, and let everyone put on their cameras, and then let's take a picture.
Thank you, Boyd, and all the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
very
Thank you, Pak Ho. Thank you, Pak Ken.
Okay.
Terima kasih.
Thank you,
Boyd,
Mr.
Thank you very
Boy.
much.
Thank you, Boy.
Boyd.
And all the
Thank you.
panelists.
Thank you, Boy. Thank you, Sim.
Thank you, boy.
Thank you for being here.
Here again.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you, Piero.